What's up everybody and welcome back to another episode of Fallout 4 Mods Monthly. This is a series where we go month by month and look at some of the best mods to come out for Fallout 4. This is the first episode where we're taking a trip down memory lane all the way back to December of 2015, 1 month after Fallout 4's release. I asked you guys in the comments of some of the previous episodes if you wanted to see some of these older ones where we really have some more primitive mods, and you said yes, so that is what we are checking out today. With that being said, go into this with that mindset. Modding tools were not really available yet, so the mods you're going to see are going to be relatively basic, although some of them have transformed into much bigger mods today. With all that being said, if you do enjoy the series, I encourage you guys to consider subscribing, or you can check out a new Patreon I just made to help support the channel. With all that being said, let's get right into the list. So first and foremost, one of the very first mods released for Fallout 4 at the beginning of December was actually True Storms. If you've never heard of True Storms, it is still an extremely relevant mod, basically overhauling the weather in Fallout 4. At least that's what it used to do. It added new rain effects and some new sound effects, and all around made weather a much more dominant force. In the most recent updates, we're actually seeing changes beyond that, adding new features like ambient collision, and basically if it's foggy out, NPCs will have a harder time detecting you if it's sneaking, really forcing you to play around the weather types. About a week ago, it was ported to Xbox One, and without a doubt, this is one of the best mods for Fallout 4. It's one of my all-time favorite mods, and it's crazy to see how far it's come since its December 4th release. A relatively simple mod, but very practical in nature, lowers your weapons in first person. It basically recreates what's done in third person, where if you fire your weapon or have recently fired your weapon, it'll be raised, otherwise if you're just walking around, it'll be lowered. In first person, it was always raised, which looked kind of obnoxious, especially when talking to people. It looked like you just have your gun pointed at them, but now it'll be lowered. This one actually technically came out in November, but I'm not doing a video of these for November because there's so few mods, so I put it in the December category because it is still so widely used. Many people mark this as a must download for Fallout 4 just because of how obnoxious it is having your weapon raised at all times. I personally use it in my survival playthrough, and I really like this mod. It's very practical, but again, very simple. Better Settlers overhauled settlements. In the vanilla game, settlers feel almost robotic. As they come to your settlement, they all look like kind of carbon copies of one another with no real defining features. Better Settlers aims to change that and make them a little bit more dynamic and unique. There are a ton of different settings with this mod, but the primary features are giving settlers different outfits, giving them different weapons and armor, and you could change their health so you can really control what kind of settlers you want. The main reason I used this was actually because it allowed you to have mortal settlers, which I really like that as a feature. That coupled with a few other settlement defense mods made you really care about your settlements. When your settlers died, it was, well, they actually died. You had to go out and replace them and do the work towards that. I grew more attached to my settlers while using this mod, and it's all around a really good mod that's been regularly updated since its release in December. Homemaker is another mod that came out of November, but it's so huge that I included it in the December category. It is today one of the most downloaded and most used mods in general. Basically, it adds in a ton of new objects for settlements. And by a ton, I mean in excess of 1,000. On its release, it basically added in a lot of objects in Fallout 4 that you just couldn't build in settlements. So these were things that were in the world space, but you didn't have the option to actually craft them through the workshop system. With about 9 months of updates, it has expanded way beyond that, now adding in tons of custom things, and a lot of people do view this as the one-stop mod for settlements. Spring cleaning is a super simple mod, but an extremely necessary mod. Basically, the workshop system was pretty cool, but you couldn't clean up your settlements completely. You would still have little rubble around, and it just didn't look good. It didn't look clean, even though you totally modernized it and took it over. This is a huge mistake on Bethesda's part. I don't understand why they made that into the game. Fortunately, we do have spring cleaning to fix that. The mod covers all of the settlements in the game, basically allowing you to remove all the things you would want to remove, like different rubbles, and even to a little bit more of an extreme, in Sanctuary you could delete all the different houses if you so desire. It's a very simple mod, but just works. And if you really care about settlement building, I think this is a must download. Having all those little rubbles all around Red Rocket drive me insane until I downloaded this. The N7 combat armor. So this is actually the only armor mod on this list. We didn't really get many custom armors or power armors right around Fallout 4's release because a lot of people had to actually create them, and it wasn't as easy to port mods from New Vegas without the creation kit. This was the first kind of major combat armor. Even though it was pretty much just a retexture, it did get a lot of downloads right off the bat and started a stream of retexture mods. Basically, when these things came out, they were replacers. So if you installed this mod, it would be a new paint job over your existing combat armor. Since then, a lot of them have been updated to standalone versions, which is pretty nice and pretty much the norm today. But back in the beginning days of Fallout 4 modding, it was very much so you can only use one of these mods at a time and it would replace the vanilla textures. Today is a cool combat armor mod, although totally overshadowed by ones that have custom models and are more unique. Still a cool mod and a little bit of nostalgia for you. Robot Home Defense. So this was Automatron before Automatron's release. Basically, you could place down different robots inside of your settlement, pretty much covering all the robots in the game. Once you place these down, you did have a ton of options with them. There were healers, there were emergency service ones, there were brewers, utility ones that you could actually send out to do scrapping runs. You could have all of them follow you as companions, but you could have multiple at a time. They weren't taking up companion slots. And after you reach a certain point in the story, you could start populating your settlement with synths, which you could also place down. All around, it was a really cool mod, and all of this was done before Automatron was even announced. Basically, what happened was, after Automatron was announced, the mod author got really discouraged and the mod stopped seeing updates around March of this year. Even so, it's still a really cool mod. It doesn't have all the customizability options that Automatron did provide, but it does have other options, which is kind of crazy to think the DLC competes with the mod that came out 2 months after Fallout 4's release. The mod still is actually pretty relevant today. It's very usable, and there's a lot of features in here that you can't do with Automatron that would almost make it a justifiable download, although the customizability thing is pretty huge. We Are The Minutemen was the original overhaul mod. This overhauled the Minutemen, making them feel more like a true army. It adds in new textures and new clothing items and all things like that. There's so many different features here, it's hard to go over all of them. It even allows you to place down Minutemen as guards inside of your settlements. All this has to be done after you complete the castle quest, and it made those Preston gravy tests just not as annoying. This mod is still regularly updated. It's kind of hard to talk about it. I need like 10-20 minutes to talk about it, but it's a very cool mod if you're playing through Fallout 4, a very practical mod, and it's really nice to see these mods still be updated. Like, this came out in the middle of December and now it's August, and the mod author has pretty much just kept with it every single month, adding new things. Last but not least, we do have Lightsaber Renew, adding in a lightsaber into Fallout 4. I remember making a video about this right around when it was released, and I remember it just kind of worked. Like, it added a lightsaber, had custom sound effects, and looked and worked cool. A relatively simple mod, but one of the first really custom and awesome weapon mods. It wasn't custom to Fallout 4, it was a port from a previous game, but at this point all we really had was retextures of existing guns. We didn't have many new guns. And frankly, a lot of people use the lightsaber mod even today. I actually made a video about it just a few days ago, or rather it was in one of my videos. That's pretty much it for this week though, guys. I do hope you enjoyed this episode of Fallout 4 Mods Monthly. Next we should be doing January, where things really start to spice up for mods. I feel like at that point everyone kind of played through the game already, so they really focused more on modding and downloading mods. Although in March is when things got really spicy, as we did get the creation kit and the beta of the creation kit. If you did enjoy, again, I do encourage you guys to either consider subscribing, or if you're feeling really generous, support me on Patreon. I did just create it in order to help out the channel as I go back to school. With all that being said, I hope to see you all next time. Later.